Good afternoon, friends. David Wright here, and I'm your host of the Disruptive Innovators Champions of Digital Business podcast. And today I am lucky enough to be joined by Claudia Infante. Claudia, how are you? It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you. Having a great day. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for this. So, Claudia, for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with your work, can you just tell everyone a little bit about your current role?
Sure. So I am, as of last year, I was appointed the Chief Data Officer for Margaritaville, the enterprises. We are a franchising and licensing company. And so what we own is basically the IP based on the life and works of and we license and package the fields and franchise this IP as a way to expand the relationship between consumers in the Margaritaville life. So we our job description says that we are to create and deliver fun and escapism. And I don't know of any other job where you get to do that. So we're pretty
Love
lucky.
that. Yeah, super cool. I like we talked about the other day. I had the opportunity to visit the property in the Bahamas, which was fantastic. We had a great time.
Yeah.
And my a colleague of mine, he actually had a Margaritaville party at his house. So
Oh, yeah.
clearly,
I mean, we certainly sell enough products that you can have a house that is Margaritaville, all of it. So yeah, there's no shortage of ways to escape.
love it. So, Claudia, we like to just start each episode with one piece of actionable advice. If there was just one piece of actionable advice you might look to leave the listeners with today.
One piece of actionable advice. I think for me, it's the advice I always give people is try to walk on your customers or your consumer's shoes for a mile, right? Really inspect or walk through your experience, whatever your product, whatever your service, whatever your company does or whatever your business does, you should experience your customer's experience firsthand so that you are able to understand not only where there may be opportunities, right? I mean, obviously we're always looking for where did we fail to deliver. But why not also focus on what we're doing really well and how do we optimize that? How do we scale that so that you can deliver it to more people? So for me, it's always walk in the other person's shoes and try to figure out, what you're doing wrong, but more importantly, what you're doing right.
I love that. It's a great way to start the episode, and you know, it just reminds me. It's funny. It's so random, but when I'm putting myself in the customer's shoes, or I'm designing CX related solutions, we do a lot of that, right? I am limited by my perspective. So how am I associating myself with others that have varying perspectives? You know, and we're all sitting in the place of the customer, walking through that journey, so that I'm not just I have my blinders on and hear, my colleague who has a different perspective. Like, how am I bringing those varying perspectives to the table with the same goal of putting myself in the customer's shoes?
Yeah, I worked for another brand before I came to Margaritaville, and one of the things we did over there was we created a full booking engine solution for that brand, for that particular brand. And I always sat around the team, and whenever we threw suggestions or we threw areas of opportunity, whatever. One of the things that I always realized is that, or that I realized while we were doing that, is that we are so jaded in our own biases, in our own confirmation bias, right? That we forget we're not our customer. And I will be very honest, right? I'm not my I don't I don't go to my website to buy anything Margaritaville because I live here. I can talk directly to the general manager of a hotel and go, "Hey, I'm coming. Can you give me a room?" And he'll make sure that I get what I need. I don't need to go and do the exploration of the whole brand to see if this is something I'm interested in doing. So in doing that, we almost do a disservice to ourselves and our company by not stepping outside of our own zone and trying to figure out other ways to do what we think we are doing right, right? Um, so in this other place that I was working in the other brand, I used to call my mom and go, "Hey mom, can you go look at this website and see if you can book a room?" And it's my mom, a 70-year-old Mexican lady who spoke, somewhat broken English and understood nothing about hotels, could book a room. Then I was like, okay, then we're good, right? We can then deliver to anyone because I knew that she was almost my litmus test, right? I knew that she was that kind of very very basic customer, and so I feel like that's something we probably, not that you're going to take the feedback necessarily to production, but you want to take in consideration the feedback or the feedback of people who are not in your industry. That's another thing we do a lot is we go and consult the experts that work in the same field that we do. In reality, is they're going through the same challenges. They're having the same opportunities. They're having the same discussions, and potentially they have the same blinders that you and I have on. So it's sometimes a little bit contrary, but having friends or having partners outside of your own industry that you can go and talk to and go, "Hey, we're trying to do this, or we're trying to solve this problem. How do you guys do it in insurance? How do you guys do it in banking? How do you guys do it in healthcare? How do you guys do it in automobile or repairs, or I don't know. There's so many other places that you can go look for solutions that allow you potentially to look at different blenders, or bring your blenders a little bit down."
Yeah, no, it's such a that's great continuation of the advice, right? In getting those various industries involved. Like in healthcare, for example, it's classically been very insular, like from the conferences to the thing. It's like recycled air oftentimes. And there's brilliant people, right? Of course. But one of the cool things that I've seen happen in recent years, actually, there's one guy I'm thinking of in particular for a New York based health system, worked in hospitality. And they brought him in to revamp the hospitality for the health system. And I
Yeah.
mean, really cool when you can bring in folks with, different experiences. So,
Yeah, many years ago, it's probably been, I don't know, 10, 12 years, but I worked with one of the large healthcare companies here in Florida because they were looking to revamp the way that they rotated beds in the hospital. And so, of course, in revenue management, which was the discipline that I started in revenue management, that is what you do is you have perishable product. And so you're continuously trying to figure out how to rotate that product and not miss the opportunity to sell it. And so I work with this particular healthcare company, and it was incredible to see how much how much parity existed, or how many things were similar between the hotel industry and how we sell inventory in the hotels to how the hospitals basically manage their inventory of beds available. So yeah, you never know where you're going to find those parallels.
100%. So I mean, we actually kind of naturally started getting into a little bit of your backstory, a couple of your last roles, and curious to find out even just a little bit more about how you started out and how you got to where you're at in your career today.
Sure. I have been in this crazy ride for a little bit over 27 years. So I started when I was 4. Um, right out of pre-K. No, it's been a while, and I started basically in technology, in a company that did reservations, technology reservations for hotels that were independent, that were not attached to a brand, right? So this is Lexington Services back in the 90s. And what they did is they offered a kind of open-ended booking engine solution to hotels where you could, connect, and in the days where, to connect to the internet, you still had to wait for dial tone. So it's been a while. But one of the beautiful things that I learned when I was there, I was started as a helper, I guess, a front desk agent or a call center agent, helping travel agents that were having trouble getting their reservations confirmed. And so that kind of threw me into this world of all the data that is basically navigating every day or, passing every day between systems that allow for the world to move the way it does, whether it's an airline, hotel, a car rental, a ship. I mean, all of these things that are now booked through a booking engine, still some of those, probably about 30 or 40% of that traffic still goes through those ancient dinosaur systems that we know as global distribution systems. And so that kind of tickled a little bit of that curiosity that I had around data and how it moved. And so it threw me into this whirlwind of a career where I went and spent time in Mexico and worked for large resorts in their reservations and data management solutions, revenue management. I learned a lot about revenue management and kind of how important it is for hotels to keep the 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 dynamic movement of their inventory and the way that they sell hotel rooms to make sure that they get obviously the most profitability in their books. Um, and then I kind of did a little bit of a stint with operations and in mergers and acquisitions, which I will be honest, that was my least favorite thing to do. Um, Mergers and acquisitions were very hard, and it was a thing that I was like, yeah, no. And so I did that for about a couple of years. And then I ended up almost by chin, landing a role with Hard Rock International. And I kind of walked in on the role thinking, oh, it'll be a good, 2, 3 year job that can sprint me on to the next thing, thinking that I wanted to go back and work in hotels and revenue management. And then I just found a completely different um, role in there that allowed me to learn even more about data management and things that I wanted to develop. And so I blinked, and before I knew it was 10 years, and I'd been there for a long time. And they were moving down to South Florida. I couldn't move down there. My family, my life, everything was here in Orlando. And so I decided to stay here, and then Margaritaville kind of came to the scene going, hey, we need someone to help us figure out this whole data piece, and we now have hotels. So you are kind of the person that we heard could help us. And so, it's been 7 years, an amazing ride. This company is vibrant and quick and just generous with the way that the leadership here allows me to ask and move around, and they don't get in the way. And so we've seen incredible growth in the last 7 years because of how dynamic this company is.
Super cool. What would you say is one of the most important things that you learned over the course of your journey, Claudia? Like if you're thinking about life before, life after, is there something that sticks out in your mind?
Um, I've learned a lot of really important lessons. I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned is you have to be able to accept and understand that there are always people that are better than you at whatever you think you do, right? I thought I was a great revenue manager, and I always thought, I'm good. People would tell me I was good. And then I found Michelle, who works in my team, and she's a revenue strategist, and she just slaps me down and puts me to bed with one hand behind her back. I mean, she's just amazing. And so I think for me, it was more about learning to, understand that I don't have to know everything. I don't have to answer all the questions. I don't have to know even what we're talking about sometimes. I just need to understand that I need to empower people to do what's best for the company, to do what they do really well and get out of the way, like not be an obstacle for them. So that's my job is to knock down obstacles for them so that they can do what they do really well. And they're amazing. I have an amazing team. So surrounding yourself with an amazing team.
Yeah, I love that. The leaders that I admire most that I've had the opportunity to talk to and become friends with over the course of my career and in particularly having had started Disruptive Innovators are humble leaders. And these are folks titans like at the top of their industries. My mom was the one, she's the CEO of a behavioral health nonprofit, as a lot of our listeners know, out of New Jersey, that she's scaled into quite an operation. And she's the first person to say, like, I always am trying to hire people that are smarter than me, you know? Um, and of course, right? And at the same time, right? Like, no one has the same experience that you have, right? And it's like, yes, there's people that are smarter in that role, but like in regard to the orchestration of it all and like, kind of like you're saying, empowering those folks, like your ability to empower them and to break down those obstacles has come over years of doing what you've done. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's been my experience as well, really.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also recognize that, all of our careers are the product of a lot of circumstances, right? A lot of chances sometimes. I will tell you, and I'll share these, kind of tongue in cheek, but I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of people who who call themselves self-made. And I'm very, very honest about that, very, very kind of open about it. And the reason I'm not a fan of people who call themselves self-made for whatever reason is because nobody is self-made. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care how much money you had at the beginning or how not money you had at the beginning or how title or knowledge or whatever you do not. Somebody in that past lend you a hand. Somebody said, okay, I will let you do that. Somebody bought a product from you. Somebody gave you a chance at one point to show what you could do and to get to where you are. So for me, I think sometimes discounting the fact that our career, and I say for me, my career stands on the shoulders of many, many people. It stands on the shoulders of family, my friends, my kids, my ex-husband, my fiance, my friends, my coworkers, my leaders, my community, people who gave my kids a ride when I couldn't get there on time. People who, came and checked on my dogs because I wasn't home. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I
all of
do.
those things, all of those things allow us to go and do what we can do. And the fact that someone is there to support you, even if it's not by working with you, but by picking up your kids from school because you're stuck in a meeting, that is support that you cannot buy. Maybe you can, but it's support that you have to. And there's no such thing as self-made unless you live off the grid and you have nobody in your life who deserves your time or your attention. Then okay, well then your life is just sad. But I don't believe in that. I don't believe in self-made anything. It's look around and look behind, look below, look at all the people that that you counted on over the years to make your career. So I'm a big believer in understanding and knowing that, and the same way that my career stands on the shoulders of all those people, I also have the moral and sometimes you know tactical obligation to take care of
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like egocentric, self-made, you know what I mean? Um,
them. Well, and sometimes those people don't give themselves the title. Somebody else gives it to them. Who's a great millionaire? Oh, whatever. That there's no such thing. I mean,
yeah.
you know, but and again, that's a pet peeve of mine, right? And that's just my little soapbox.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like old money versus new money. Like, okay, somebody had
Right.
generational wealth and then they created it into more wealth versus someone who maybe didn't. But
But it's not
I
even
agree
about
with you.
wealth, right? It's not even about
Right.
wealth. I mean, it's just about like a self-made artist. Oh, stop it. At one point, somebody had to buy your painting or buy your photo or you know what I mean? Like it's you defend it. It's something beyond a relationship. We live in society for a reason. Again, if you live in the middle of the mountain and no one knows you exist and you're self-made, you are. No one is arguing with that.
I feel like somebody may have called me self-made before, and I'd be like, "No, you haven't met my wife yet." You know, right?
Exactly. I'm telling you, it's one of those things, right?
Or
And
my
there's no
parents,
such
or
thing.
a million
Or
people
your teachers or your
who have
friends, or
helped
again,
me.
it's all the people, because even the people that have feedback for you that is not necessarily positive, right? Sometimes we have that too. And even your critics are people who eventually come to help you, because there's no way that we would know what we need to improve on if someone
Yeah.
didn't criticize us. So even those people somehow support your growth and support your career.
Well, it reminds me, and I wanna talk a little bit more about what you guys are up to at Margaritaville, but for me, my most, profound moments of personal and professional development have come from some of my most, traumatic even, like, moments in my life where, um, I've been at a crossroads and I've, you know, with the support of others and you know, a lot of things outside of myself, I've been able to get to another place where that experience then was the catalyst for some really amazing things in the future. Is there a time that sticks out over the course of your career that you had a project fail or you had a personal hardship or a professional hardship, but ultimately you took away a profound lesson or something that has helped shape you into the executive you are today?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't, right? We all have lives that are lived in parallel, right? Our careers sometimes are a little bit of a veil that kind of lives in front of whatever your life is, right? And so sometimes what people see when you listen to a podcast or you go and see someone, you do a keynote or whatever, you see the best of us up on stage. And it's the same for athletes and artists and everybody. We're all living our best life on Instagram and out in the world. Behind the veil, behind the walls in your office or in your home, there could be a whole lot of stuff going. And so failure sometimes I think is a little bit of a, I don't know, it's a small qualifier. Sometimes I think for projects that didn't go the way you expected them. And so I feel that failures are a way to for us to put a notch on things that we shouldn't do again, and then do a real good analysis of how we got there. And so for me, I've had I have a lot of projects that have failed. I've done a lot of things that didn't go the way I expected them. And I've had a lot of disappointments, if you would, over my career. Ultimately, though, the lesson that I've learned the most out of failures, quote unquote, has been to be nimble and be flexible and almost, make margaritas out of the limes, right? It's just figure out how you can turn this thing into something good, or how can you use the remnants of the wreckage and sell it like an art project, do something
Yeah.
else, right? It's a lot
Right.
of that. And so one of the things that I feel that sets apart people who fail and just fail and people who evolve and change out of something that didn't go right is the creativity to move things around and just reconfigure the mess that you have in your hands to turn it into something else or to try to salvage as much as you can in terms of experience, in terms of learning, in terms of people. It could be anything, right? So all of those things I think are only possible if you're flexible and nimble and you're willing to go, "Oh, okay, this didn't work. Let's move on." One of my favorite um, references that our CEO makes to the to the late Jimmy Buffett, who obviously started Margaritaville, is that he lived his life with no rear view mirror.
Mhm.
And everything that we do in the company is breathe in, breathe out, move on. If it worked, great. Breathe in, breathe out, move on. And if it didn't work, you're- okay, breathe in, breathe out, move on, right? The philosophy is the same. And I think it's so important that we do that. And a lot of athletes, for example, talk about this, right? Is you have to be able to lose the point, cry for 30 seconds, or angry, or be angry, or whatever it is. And move on. You're on to the next point. Because the longer you linger on your failures, the more time you're investing on something that's already broken. So there's a little bit of flexibility, but also forgiveness in failures, and being able to move quickly, moving on.
Yeah, I love that. I found that I have no idea what might be an upsetting or a difficult situation, something that makes me angry, what is good or bad, right? Because there are things that I look back on now that I'm so grateful for, right? That, I had to kind of like you said, shake it off and move on. And then ultimately they became the catalyst for something really great. And in the moment, they were uncomfortable. And I think that's a talent too, right? As executives, uh, that live these mantras kind of that you're talking about right now. I think part of it is about, for me, it's about also like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's just something that like I've had to, because I used to run from discomfort, personally, professionally, or otherwise. And now it's just like you just walk through it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And it's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think that comes a little bit also with growth, right? With, quite honestly, with maturing as a leader, with maturing as a person, right? You're not still looking, inside and out to figure out who you are, or at a certain age or a certain point in our careers, we're pretty sure. And I'm sure that that's, for me, that's also the other thing, is there is a point in my career, and I almost know what day it was, that I was like, okay, I'm 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 done. I'm done trying to be everything for all people. Like, that's not gonna happen. It's not going to be possible. So if you like me, if you like my work, if you like the way that I approach problems, can great. Let's work together. If you don't like me, and you don't like the way I approach my work, and you don't like what, amazing. Let's work together. I okay. Like, I don't need to be all things to all people. And if you don't like the way I work, then we still have to work together. Or we don't. And maybe we don't. And that's okay too, right? So there's a moment where you start kind of making, I think, those decisions about, why do I really care about, and why do I really not care about? And so I think being liked is one of those things that I gave up a while ago.
Yeah, 100%. And time is a finite commodity, like it's
Indeed.
something that.
It's over before you know it.
So this is great stuff, Claudia. I wanna shift gears before we talk about Margaritaville. I always like to ask just favorite book or literary piece, either that you've read recently or all time, something that you'd recommend to the listeners to check out.
Well, I think I guess it depends. Professionally speaking, one of my favorite books of all time, actually, there's two of them. One is called Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which I'm sure many of you guys have already read. Your listeners have read. Is that the classic in organizational structures and marketing and all the other things. So it's a great book. I also like Creativity Inc. It talked about Disney and how Pixar came to be the incredible organization that it is, and how their movies were all successful because of these particular strategies that they use to manage their team and their process. And I think it's just genius. It's a genius book. So if you haven't heard it, it's amazing. It's called Creativity Inc. And then, personally speaking, my all-time favorite from all times and all years, I die, is going to be my favorite book still. Is Le Petit Prince. Is the Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Is an exemplary book of finding love beyond anything and everything, right? And going through the paces for the love, for the people that you love, or the things that you love, and somehow still figuring out how to be kind and how to just stay true to who you are. So I love that book. It's my favorite above all other
Trying
books.
to think, someone else, someone else I had on was mentioned The Little Prince. I can't remember reading it for years. I feel like I read it when I don't even remember, maybe in high school or,
Yeah. So I will tell
I
you,
gotta
I
pick it
read
back
it.
up.
Yeah. It's a one night read. I mean, if you have a couple hours, it takes no more than that. I read it the first time when I was 6 years old. And I grew up with my grandparents in Mexico. And so my aunt gave me that. And she said, pay attention to what it said. It'll be good. And it's like those things that you say, there's a saying, right? That says all the important things, all the important lessons I learned in kindergarten is
Right.
I need to take a nap, take it in the afternoon, hold your hand, hold people, look both ways in the street, right? And hold somebody's hand and stick together kind of thing. Is exactly that kind of book. It's all the important things I needed to learn in life. I learned them from that book when I was 6 years. So
Love it.
it's been a
Super
while.
cool.
I love that book.
Um, so fast forward from 6 years old to now, you're chief data officer at Margaritaville. Talk to us just a little bit about your, because I mean, now you've been at the company for a little while, but you've been in this role for just about a year. Talk to us a little bit about your vision, maybe some of the initiatives you guys are working on. Just curious to know more what's going on.
So yeah, sure. So I think becoming the data officer or chief data officer for Margaritaville is for me was a little bit of an evolution of the role that I initially took. I initially came in as a director of revenue strategy, or one of those, and just kind of the evolution of that role in the sense of all the things that I have been able to get support to do because I didn't do them. Again, I don't do these things. I'm a mouthpiece. Like people that work on my team are really the heroes in this story. But so just kind of putting together the strategy to grow this company in the data side of things. So when I came around, there was 4 hotels that were Margaritaville branded, and there was really no standards of operations for systems, for connectivity, for any of that. And so I use a lot of the experience, and to be true, a lot of the people that work with me at Hard Rock, I brought them to Margaritaville to do the same thing that we were doing at Hard Rock in terms of connecting hotel solutions to a data management program. So in the the span of 7 years, we've basically built what we call a hotel in a box. So all the systems that go in a hotel are all selected and connected. And so when we have a new franchisee, we basically just drop the box, and it's as my boss says, it's plug and play. It never is, but it sounds very simple, right? It's allowed us to be quite scalable, very nimble. We are able to deploy things quickly and connect things quickly because all of the connectivity and the APIs are already working. So it's just putting one more puzzle piece in this huge puzzle, if you would. So that's kind of the core of what I've done over the last 7 years. And then last year, with a couple of initiatives that we have going on right now, one of them being our loyalty program, a gift card program. We have an app that is launching in the next, I don't know, but next year. I'm not jinxing it yet. So a lot of all these other things that we want to do, and the growth of the brand in other business lines like cruise ships or even the restaurants in some of the other areas, um, and the real estate. We identified the need for us to be more wholesome and more holistic in how we're approaching data management overall. So this role of chief data officer is meant to do that. It's meant to kind of shepherd the brand through a data management program, data optimization program, and then ultimately with the idea to become a data platform for our partners, our franchisees, our licensees, and eventually other business.
Super cool. It's where data is money. and as now more than ever.
Yeah.
And even more so, right? Data is at the root of personalized, radically convenient experience for the consumer, right? For me.
Yeah, there's a lot of data that I think it's important not only at the consumer side or on the consumer side, but also for us on the business side,
Right.
knowing that we have knowing that we have a lot of trends already contained within our data allows us to make then a little bit more mindful and conscientious decisions about what products we want to think about, what products we're launching to the market, who are we associating ourselves with. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah. What about challenges? I mean, so obviously you were at Margaritaville through COVID. So, now it's been, a couple of years. Like what are some of the biggest challenges you guys face as a business today?
I mean, like every other company, I don't think anybody has enough people, right? I mean, we're always working on getting our teams to be fully staffed and trying to do more with less. I would say that's probably our motto is we do a lot with less. And it's the prioritization of those projects, right? It's what's as I always tell my team, it's what's high priority, what's mid priority, what's low priority, and what's a freaking like, fire dumpster fire that you have to deal with today, right? And so we have some dumpster fires that we always are working on. But then we also have a very clear kind of map and concise idea of where we want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And so while we are dealing with the dumpster fire over here, we're also making sure that the strategy is being looked after, that we are making decisions that are based on that long-term strategy and making sure that we are not, and I will say this, we're not going with the trend. We're not necessarily following what's cool and what's hot right now. We're okay if we're not the coolest kid on the block. We want to go with initiatives and strategies that make us very stable, that make us reliable, and make us scalable, and that make us profitable. So it's steady wins the race in that case, and that's what we're doing is we're being very steady as to how we are deploying ourselves to make sure that we're not eating too much candy and then getting diabetes. So
That's a good analogy. So, couple last questions for you, Claudia. This has been awesome. One would be, what do you think? So, you're in the hospitality industry. What do you think will be um, some of the biggest changes as time passes, or what do you think the future of hospitality looks like with an understanding that you don't have a crystal ball over there?
I was going to say, let me get it out. It's right here. Well, I mean, I think the applications of AI in hospitality and in general in travel are going to be interesting to look at, right? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Obviously, there's already a lot of applications and a lot of conversation around AI and what it can do for your business model. I mean, with quite honestly, the third parties just kind of eating our cake, right? They're already fully embedded and working on it. I think that's a trend to follow, just something that we should pay attention to and understand when the good time is for us to step in and
Yeah.
use it to the best of our abilities. I don't know that AI is for everyone, at least not yet. Right? Eventually, I think it'll become a normal thing, just like iPhones are today, or everybody having a phone line is now, right? I mean, for those of us who grew up with one phone in the house with 12 people, it it's having everybody having a phone was just ridiculous, and now obviously it's okay. So I think
I could
it'll
see
get there.
some Margaritaville consumers maybe being a little trepidatious about AI. I don't know. Like when I envision like the typical Margaritaville person, which it could be totally off, right?
I
But
think you
just
may be off. Who do you think is a typical Margaritaville person?
I think of like the like 40, 50-year old like Hawaiian shirt, like kind of like maybe like smoked a lot of weed in college. Like that's like
Yeah, the
that's who
people
I
who know
think of.
how to have fun, right?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Millennials are actually our largest group of consumers.
Wow. Which
You would
makes
be
sense because I
surprised.
was literally just there and I'm not that person, right?
Exactly.
Um,
I think the hotels brought another dimension to the brand that wasn't there back in the day when it was just restaurants. The hotels are much elevated solutions. So it's definitely helping us bring a different experience. And then obviously the cruise ship. If you think about cruise ships, well, hotels see, I don't know, 30,000 people in the year, whereas cruises see 30,000 people in a month. So that experience is being delivered now in much higher volume, and it's a very different kind of experience. So yeah, you'd be surprised who our consumer is, but yeah,
that's good. I love being surprised. And I will say I went through I forget if it was Marriott but I leveraged an AI the other day because I'm like doing this thing where I'm trying to find somewhere in the Caribbean during like the month after Christmas that's like not too expensive where I can get a flight and it's beachfront and it's a suite and it's this and that. And like basically it let me do a prompt to try to back into some properties that had that. And it was interesting. It wasn't quite there yet. Like it didn't really get me where I needed to be, but it was intriguing to me.
yeah. And I will tell you, right? That's the thing with Margaritaville. So no, you won't be able to find that in Margaritaville, but you'll be able to do a lot of that actually. We have enough in our booking engines and website that you could, quickly prompt what you're looking for and get something that will give you what you need. More importantly though, and I said it and I was speaking to someone else about this, and I said, one of our focuses as Margaritaville is leveraging data to take care of the mundane and I don't know, banal work that is done in the hotel. And technology should enable, but then it should also enable our staff, our team members, and ourselves to have very human communication, very human interaction with our guests, because that's why they're there. Margaritaville is not a product. And I think you and I talked a little bit about that, right? It's if you think of close your eyes and I say Coca-Cola, you picture what that is. If I say Marriott, you picture what that is. If I say Kleenex, you picture what that is. We all know what that is. But if I say Margaritaville, it could be very different for you, that it could be very different for me, right? And it could be in the mountains, it could be in the ocean, it could be on the beach, it could be on a river, it could be a pool, it could be in a library. Margaritaville is a state of mind, it's an emotion. And so for us, that alone is worth saving, is worth rescuing and trying to keep as human and as precious as it is. So I said to someone else, we lead with our heart, with a smile, with an eye contact rather than the screen. So um, that's how we want to continue.
Super cool. Claudia, this has been awesome. Last question we always just like to close on is if you could go back 5, 10, 15, 20 years in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oof, that's a good question. I think I would tell myself not to be so hard on, not to be so critical of myself. Right? Is be a little gentler. Although if I had been gentler with myself, to myself, I probably wouldn't be where I am, right? Because
Who
that's
knows?
the yeah, that's the challenge, right? And would you have gotten to where you are had you not gone through all the hard things? Yeah, well, I think there's a thousand things I would try to do and tell myself and figure out. I think I'm really kind of happy and I'm very grateful to be where I am. So I'm just glad that I didn't quit when I thought I needed to.
Love that. I'd tell myself to buy Amazon stock.
Yeah, yeah. And I could see that. But it's okay. Who wants to be that rich, man? Nobody wants to be that rich. That's a lot of problems.
Yeah. Margaritaville. That's where I want to be. Claudia, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on. This is great.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. You're welcome at Margaritaville. So just let me know when you're coming and see us. And so, please, we'll have a beachside chair for you.
Love it. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Check out Margaritaville, and we will catch you next week.